Alrighty, I believe I've started the stream. Now I'm going to be sharing that announcement with some various channels on Slack. So at the automatic Slack and also the core.js Slack on making WordPress. And with that, now I'm going to switch over to my camera. Hi there, it's Q here, and it is 3:01 p.m. here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and it's Friday. Hope you had a lovely week so far. Excuse my voice a little bit. I am a little bit sick. Hopefully it doesn't affect the audio too much, and there is also construction going on outside. So I apologize if there's any kind of background drilling, noise, or anything else that might come from construction. And today, I started working on a card component for WordPress components, which I think it's a pretty basic kind of fundamental component which happens to be missing at the moment. So I figured I'd give it a shot. And I'm going to jump over to my desktop now. And alrighty, cool. So I have a new kind of stream set up. Hopefully this goes okay. I'm using my laptop open on this side so I can actually control the things on my screen, and I can actually see some things that are happening in live chat. Wow, so revolutionary, am I right? So jumping to this, what you're seeing right now is my iPad, and how I like to work with this stuff is I like to draw out the ideas or the things I'm going to be building today. So today we are going to be building a card component. Let's see, zoom in a bit. Yeah, that's fine. We are going to be working on a card component. Yay! For WordPress components. And a card component, it's kind of simple, right? It's a box. I'm going to put, mine just happens to have a happy face in it. Yeah, because he's happy. So that's basically all it is. It's just a box. In the context of WordPress and how the WordPress aesthetics, it's a box with a border. Pretty simple. And I can totally do that, but I would like to also make it a little bit more flexible, because card components, they don't just exist just like you have a box and then you put stuff in it. I mean, that's what they are, but there are also various UIs that you can construct with card components. Usually, they have some form of maybe header, like that, where you have like some text here and then you have some other text here. So the card component needs to have some form of some way of rendering headers in a uniform way, like a consistent way of rendering headers. Same thing for footers. So you have content here and then you have a footer. Typically, maybe you have some actions on the bottom left, bottom right, whatever. Maybe you have a combination of both, where you have a header that says something, and then you have some stuff, and now you have a footer that has some other stuff. Well, guess what? When you have a user interface that looks something like this, and you happen to add an X on it, and you happen to give it some form of like drop shadow, and you put that on top of stuff, this just becomes a modal. So having a card component is pretty fundamental in building out the rest of your component set, because you can use it as a piece to compose and construct other bits of UI. So another good example is if you had a popover, right? Well, a popover is a box that maybe has a box shadow, I don't know. But your popovers might have a header, you might have a footer, you might have actions, it might be scrollable, whatever it is. But the thing here, this thing, well, that's also a card component, or it can be. And ideally, you would like your card component to, yes, be able to render things, and maybe have some variants where you can render things with a shadow, or your card can have a shadow. Your card could be borderless, but it should be able to facilitate all of these use cases and becomes the tiny little building block to build all of these things. And the more you're able to do this from a sub-component level, the more uniform your UI will just inherently be, because you're using little bits to build other bits. And that's a cool thing about all this component stuff. And the other interesting thing about cards is what I like to do is after I draw something, I like to kind of just shrink it aside and move on to another idea. So you have a card that displays content. I'm gonna draw some content here, right? Or you could have a card that has like an image. And usually in these image-based interfaces with kind of content underneath, the image takes up their edge to edge. They should be able to render edge to edge. And the other interesting detail is when you have cards typically in this WordPress aesthetic are rounded borders. So there is some sort of like overflow clipping kind of handling that needs to be taken care of when it comes to images. That's something to consider. And these little bits that you can build into your card, they should be very composable as well, because you could have a card that has an image up here, and then you have various little blocks within your card that are divided with like some sort of horizontal rule or divider or something like that, where you have like some content and maybe you have some other content, and the content in here happens to be scrollable. I don't know. But you should be able to handle these cases, and a card should be able to accommodate all these things. Because the cool thing is, once your little card guy is able to take care of all these bits, you basically take away that overhead from the designer or the developer, because the next time they need to implement some sort of UI that has all of these pretty fundamental UI patterns, it's already been taken care of for you. So that's what I'm going to be working on today, and I'm very excited to do this. What's another thing I have to consider? There was something else. Now I'm kind of forgetting. That's okay. I can come back to this drawing another time. My chicken scratch drawing of my little happy card guy. That's what I'm going to be building. And the reason why, well, this is a draft, just because I'm just proposing this idea to see if it's viable for the folks. But then I'm also starting to explore certain kind of technologies and also different methods of developing UI like this. Now that Storybook has been added to the WordPress components library, which is fantastic, by the way, Enrique, thank you so much for working on that, and everyone else for reviewing. It's opening up so many doors, and I'm so excited to be working in this kind of dedicated UI dev environment. It allows me to really focus on and build out all of these use cases really quickly. You'll be able to see this later on as I work on this. So this is the game plan right here. I'm just gonna write the word game. Hang on. There's too much streamlining. Need to not streamline my writing. All right. Game plan. This is what we're gonna be building. Game plan. Yeah. Collection of card things. Okay. No more iPad time. Here we go. Let's jump into code stuff. How do I close this thing? Quit? I don't want to quit. How do I? Dang it. So I'm still relatively new to this kind of like, let me share my screen, let me share my iPad, and oh, stop mirroring. All right, there we go. And that's the text I copied into the Slack channel, which is fine. So hopefully you can see this. I'm going to share my browser now. Where is it? Here? Yes. So there was, thanks to Tammy, she pulled up this issue that was created requesting for some sort of card component, which makes sense. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, it's a fundamental component. And like this person alluded to, you could be able to construct things like mobiles from cards. And Mel has shared this wonderful mock-up of what you can construct with a card, and apparently is currently being used in the block directory, which is cool. So we already have use cases where this card can be valuable. And oh yes, the thing I remember, being able to render headers and footers where the footer or the header may be having a different kind of background color. Like in this case, it's a dark gray, not dark gray, light gray. Hey, Ben's in the live chat. I'm just poking over the live chat. Hey man, hope you're doing well. So yeah. Being able to render the header or the footer with either a traditional white background or a dark gray or a gray background would be handy. And bonus points, I kind of really want to add in dark mode support. Either, we'll see if we get there. We'll see if we can get there. So before I do this kind of stuff, what I like to do is I like to look at the landscape of how other design systems or other component libraries handle their cards, just so that I can follow patterns that people are familiar with. I need to construct how you compose your components have to follow the expectations of like the workflows that people are used to. So right now I'm looking at the material UI cards. This is, of course, Google's design language. I'm not going to necessarily copy this. I'm looking at this just to kind of see some of the interesting use cases that they present that you can compose with a card component, and maybe taking a look at how the HTML, or not the HTML, sorry, the markup, in this case it's React, is combined together to construct something like this. And one thing I'm noticing right off the bat with how they are doing things is you have a card, which is your primary component, and then you have, for lack of a better word, I call them subcomponents. Action area. You have something that looks like this, and then you have a bunch of little card components that you would combine together to construct this UI, which is great. Wow, they have a cool clicking effect that you can do. Ripples. Oh yeah, the other thing I totally forgot. Now that I'm playing with this, I remember. One thing that you can do with cards, depending on your UI, is your entire card can also be a link. And this kind of flow isn't uncommon, because you might want to present like a call to action or promo or something where you want your entire thing to be clickable. I won't build that functionality necessarily into here right now. Of course, I'll provide some sort of on-click handler so that you'll be able to do something on a click, but I think the one thing I've built before is like being able to render the card as a link if you provided it with an href, which is handy. And also, this one's a little bit trickier, but depending on your React routing situation, being able to tap into React Router by passing in, say, the to property. So now if you click on the card, which is now a link, it'll navigate you to another route inside your React Router application. Not going to be building that. That's another layer of complexity. I'm just going to start off relatively simple. Anyway, taking a look at some other cards. This is the card component from Polaris. Very simple, and how they've chosen to do this, it's a little bit different. So for example, the title, it's built into the component. It's they made a decision. They've been opinionated about something, which is good. It makes it easier, I guess, to less decisions that you had to make as an implementer. They made a decision that titles must render in this way, and then you must pass things here, and that's how titles will work. Whereas inside of React UI, it's a little bit more flexible. They give you lots and lots of little bits, and it's up to you to combine things together. I'm much more in favor of this approach from a primitive and component library perspective. Just because I like the flexibility of being able to compose things together. So I'm going to use that. And one thing that I can't find at the moment that is different between something like Polaris and something like Material UI is how they've chosen to do subcomponents. I don't know how I'll have to take a look at how WordPress Components does it, but Polaris, for example, they like using the dot association kind of thing, where action area belongs to card as a key. I personally prefer this. I like this. The reason why is because if you do something like this, and you can just import the card from, say, WordPress Components, and now you have access to all the little bits associated with it automatically. You don't have to import like 10 things. It just comes in one thing, which is cool. And looking at the markup, it's very clear when you're looking at the relationships between all the components, what belongs to what. So because of that, I'm in favor of this. But before I actually do this, I want to see how we currently do it. What is a good place to look at? Menu, probably. Menu usually has like menu items or something like that. Menu group. All right, so I see menu item is in its own little thing. It's not associated with menu whatsoever. Menu group. Okay, well, I'm just going to do the little subcomponents of the header, the body, the footer, and so on. And we can talk about it on the draft. We'll see. Timothy asks, I've never known how to make components like that accessible, particularly if it has links inside the card. Yeah, accessibility, that's an interesting thing. So yeah, that was one thing I was going to touch upon. Cards are interesting just because they don't really, from an accessibility standpoint, they're kind of neutral. They don't really do too much. Accessibility concerns like really come into play if you have basically things that mess with interaction. So popovers, modals, drop-downs, anything like that where focus needs to jump and the screen reader or something just needs to tell you, hey, something happened. That's when accessibility really comes into play. Cards can fall into that category if you have links. So one kind of tricky thing that might happen sometimes is if you had a card, let me jump to the Material UI one. If you had a card, where's that clickable lizard card? Yes. There is a pattern I've seen where people would construct a card like this, where the entire thing is clickable per se. And inside of here, they might have a link within a link. That is not correct. And that will, that just doesn't, maybe the HTML can render it, I'm not sure. But there's something about that that's just fundamentally not correct. What you can do is, if you do want to present the concept of a link, like a little blue text or something like that inside of card UI like this, is how I would do it is, let's pretend we have a card, and let's pretend it's a link. A link to somewhere, and I have stuff inside. So instead of adding a link like this, that's not a real link, but let's pretend. Ideally, I think what you would like is to have some sort of component like text, which is another super low level primitive that I don't think WordPress component has, that I would like to work on. And you can do something like this, where it's like this. So you can make the text look like a link, but it's not actually a link. So on the UI, it looks like it's a link and it looks like it's clickable, but from a semantic kind of fundamental standpoint, it's not. Therefore, from how your browser understands HTML, it's semantically correct. That's how you can get around doing that. Hopefully that's helpful. But other than that, that's kind of the only kind of weird use case where cards might fall into the accessibility consideration kind of thing, as far as interaction goes. As far as like content, contrast and all that kind of stuff, that is a separate kind of thing. That has more to do with how your texts look and how they render. Cool. I'm just looking at the live chat. I'm glad I was able to help. And in this case, you can see how they divided it. The clickable part is up here, but the links or the actions are in a separate area in the footer down below. Like clicking here doesn't influence here and vice versa. They're separate. Okay, cool. Let us construct our thing. So first, in terms of accessibility, this is not related, but I would like to give a shout out to Diego Haas. He is working on a draft to make an accessibility toolbar, leveraging Reakit, which is a incredible, absolutely incredible accessibility, lower level React library that he has started and has worked on very diligently. It solves a lot of problems. And accessibility is a huge, very, very difficult, but very fundamental thing when it comes to building these things. And he's he's working on that right now. And just wanted to shine some light on that because I think it's really important. And with that, let us jump into the actual code. So what you're seeing right here is a storybook that's fired up again. Thank you to Enrique and friends for getting this set up. And all I've done so far is I have created a card component inside of WordPress components. And I haven't done anything really special. I just rendered a thing, given it some class names, and I've just rendered some UI. The biggest difference here, and again, this is the kind of experimental kind of territory that I'm dipping into, is I am leveraging styled components to render this thing. Styled components, I think, will be really helpful in the context of WordPress components for many reasons. There is a PR open right now that is proposing this to be implemented inside of WordPress components by creating a primitive that is a box. And the cool thing about this is my favorite thing about this is just that the component can be used out of the box perfectly styled without having to import anything. The styles are bundled with the thing and they come as one. That is my favorite thing amongst many other things. So that's the narrative I'm going with right now, which means that I'm going to be writing CSS that looks like this. And if you've never done this before, it looks a little foreign. It looks a little gross, to be honest, if I'm used to coming from the CSS or Sass world. But the same could be said as if you were working with traditional HTML and you saw JSX for the first time. JSX, in the context of React and JavaScript, looks hideous. It looks revolting. But once you get past it, it's fine. It just becomes normal. So for me, that's what's happened with styled components or other CSS and JS libraries like Emotion. So that's what I'm going to be working with today. And again, this is just a proposal. We don't have to go with this, but that's what I'm working on for this particular thing, because I think it's beneficial and it's handy. And one interesting thing that I have to build into this is how do I reference colors in a uniform way? Because right now, the entirety of WordPress components is built with Sass. In Sass, you're able to leverage the variables that you've defined somewhere in the not scope, but somewhere up above and all your code bases. And all of your code bases are able to leverage those variables. I don't have that luxury. So I have to create, and I'm going to touch upon this. Thank you, Sean. Yes, you can create mixins like Sass, but you do it with JavaScript functions. So something like this you're seeing, where I'm manually doing LG, MD, SM, extra small. Ideally, what I would do, and I've done this in the past, is in Sass you can leverage, they call them maps. So I haven't done Sass in a while, so forgive me. So something like this, I think. I may be very wrong, just because I haven't done this in a long time. But you can create essentially objects, key value pairs, inside of Sass, and then you can loop over that Sass to generate things. You can do the exact same thing here, just with normal JavaScript. I haven't done it for this particular example, just because I want to keep this PR relatively simple-ish. Simple-ish. I don't want to do too many fancy things to distract away from the card component that I'm building. That's the main focus. I just want to sprinkle it with some of the fancier things I would want to add in. So in order for me to leverage existing color variables, I had to more or less create this color mixin that I'm going to show you really quickly. And what this does is I've created a kind of pattern that allows you to reference colors in this fashion, where it's like blue. Here's the actual. I'm going to show you the actual values. That will be handy. So it's kind of hard to see, but here are all the colors so far. And blue is an object that looks like this. So instead of defining all these things as individual flat objects like blue, WordPress, 700, and so on, I'm doing this in kind of nested structure. It makes it a little bit cleaner, I would say, in organizing this stuff. But then also, inside of my Mixin, my function, I'm able to leverage colors just like this. So if I wanted to do, say, a light gray 500, it would be color light gray 500, and I would be able to get my color value. So that's pretty handy. So that's what I have for the basic background and also for the basic border. The other thing that I think is very crucial. This is a tiny detail, but I think it's really important as far as CSS goes. When I'm building components that, especially that belong to a component library or a design system, I never assume box. This is incorrect. Sorry, box sizing. I never assume box sizing because I've worked in an environment where that standard, very traditional, normal thing that is, hey, fix all the box sizing border box, where that wasn't available. And then this would be randomly sprinkled in throughout, and that would just wreck everything. So when I'm building components that are designed to be used in this kind of modular fashion to be rendered in anything else, I never assume that. I always add this as part of it. That way you can more confidently add this into your existing environment, and there's a higher chance this will render correctly. So that is a detail that I've added into here. So now that takes care of styled components, which is interesting. And yeah, that's all the fancy things so far in these files. The next thing I want to touch upon is actually the Storybook. Storybook, cool. So now this is just a basic example. This is another example I'm calling Playground, and I'm leveraging an add-on from Storybook called Knobs. Funny name, I know. I had a coworker who always laughed whenever I said that, and he was from the UK, so I understand. With Knobs, what you can do is, now I'm laughing. It's such a silly name. With Knobs, what you can do is you can provide little, basically inputs or things that you can actually tinker with the component that you're testing out. So the cool thing about Storybook is I can see the thing I'm developing in isolation, which is hyper-focused and different as if I was trying to develop this card within the Gutenberg playground or anything else, or inside of a WordPress thing. I'm just focused on working on the card in isolation, and that's my main focus, and it's great. Storybook has live code reload, live code injection, and all that kind of stuff, all the modern things that you would expect from a JavaScript workflow. So that's awesome. Now here's the cool thing with Knobs. Hello. So as I type in here, you'll see that the content up there updates and adjusts. I can zoom in. Storybook is so cool. It has all these tools. And right now I've built two variations, or a couple of. There's the standard card UI, but I've added a borderless option. So now I can, as I'm developing this, as I'm developing all of these variants or little add-ons or little modifications that you can do for the card, I can live play with it in a very, very fast way within Storybook and Knobs. And this is like a wonderful combination when you're doing UI development. So I can check, hey, how's my borderless doing? Or raised. Raised is something that I drew inspiration from this material thing. It's not an uncommon pattern to have a card with some sort of shadow. So that's what I've done. Just added a box shadow there. How do I reset the zoom? Cool. Yeah, so we have knobs, we have styled components, we have Storybook. Let's start building some stuff. Cool. Yeah, I need to add another knob actually. I have sizes. So I'm going to do this now. Okay. So we have sizes. So we have a size, we have a size, and I believe the size was LG, and the value is LG. I have a couple. So I have MD, SM, extra small. And just to be clear, I will be testing this within the Gutenberg playground, and also, yeah, that's as far as I can take it. I will be testing it there. Eventually, that's when you're doing more integration testing. Right now, I'm hyper-focused on the actual unit, the component itself. And then integration will come later. All right, so now I have sizes, hopefully. Oh, I haven't done anything with it yet. All right, size. Yeah. Hey, what's going on with this? Why aren't you changing your... Oh, there we go. It's just a little bit laggy. Yeah, there we go. Large, medium, small, extra small. And by the way, you don't have to present something like through knobs. One thing you can do with Storybook, which is very handy, is to maybe have a size story where you just display the array of sizes. So you can get a one-shot glance of all your various sizes. But for the sake of development here, I like to play around with all these things. So I like to have that available for me. Okay, so I did not take a screenshot of my iPad drawing. That's okay, I have it in my memory. I have various bits that I would like to compose now. I need a header, a body, and a footer. So I'm going to create those components right now. The index is the main entry point, and now I need the body, let's say. So I'm just going to copy this. I'm just going to start off with nothing. It makes it easier this way. Additional props, class name, card, components, card, body. Oh yeah. Always, always, always pass your class name through, and also additional components to the thing that you're rendering. Very important. Alrighty. Alrighty. Cool. Some over for the flying, most of them. Folks are talking about some. Folks are talking about some duplicate CSS. Sorry, I'm taking a look at taking a look at the chat. Yeah, so the CSS duplication, that's a very real thing, but that's a trade-off. So from what I'm imagining, if you can, I wish I can be drawing. If you were to do more of the CSS and JS kind of bundled method of writing your CSS over time, as you start converting your components to leverage this kind of technique, you can start removing the older CSS just because it's not relevant anymore. And that'll kind of, the duplication will kind of fix itself. But there will be some period in time where duplication will occur. But it's a small price to pay for the gains that you get with the portability of it. And the duplicate, honestly, the duplicate CSS that you might get from, say, a card or whatever, it's not a lot in terms of bits and bytes that gets added to the JS and the CSS. The kind of developer freedom, I would say, in leveraging these portal components, that's a worthy trade-off, I would say. Cool. So now we have, hey Tammy, I see you in the chat as well. So now we have some internal components. I am going to import the body from body for now, and I will tack that on to my card. Card body equals body. And what does that do? Literally nothing as of this point, but I will get to that. Example card, I guess I'm using it. Nah, I'm gonna get rid of that. Get rid of this thing I was building earlier. Cool, example card, nope. So I'm gonna have a card, and I'm gonna have my body in it. Card, body, const, children. I have to split this out. The heck? The heck? There we go. What the heck? There we go. All right. Nope, that's incorrect. I need to do card.body. Okay, so now it should literally look the same, which it does. But the internal structure is a little bit different. So this is an interesting design decision point as far as component API goes. If you enforce this kind of, if you have a body, typically, so jumping to something like Bootstrap, they've outlined a card header and card body. So what they're saying is anytime you want to construct a card, you must add your things within a card body, which is, I would say, a tiny little extra step that you got to do in order to construct your card. But maybe that's a worthy trade-off. Because, I mean, seriously, it's easier just to write something like this. It's like, I just want to render a card, why do I need an extra component? So in terms of composability, this is a trade-off you're making. You're making the people do this little bit of extra step, which might be fine, which might not be. I think it's fine, just because that seems to be more of the traditional, or not traditional, that seems to be more of the recognized pattern of creating these composable UIs. Bootstrap is a wonderful example of like how the card has evolved over time to do something like this. Their modal follows a very similar structure. Very opinionated. You need to have multiple things in order to construct your modal. You need to have your modal, you have your content. Not only do you have to have your content, you need to have your body inside the content in order to render things. For me, from a React standpoint, this is a little bit too extreme in terms of requirements to render stuff, which you're able to abstract a little bit from with your components. So I think this extra little guy is fine. And I know I go into all these little weird tangents or this little potentially unnecessary spiel upon when it comes to these little details, but they're important. Just because when you're designing these components, you want it to be as easy as possible it is for someone else just to start using it and adopting it. And that comes from the decision of like, do I add a card body or not? Alrighty, so let me, so I have to update this guy as well to follow that same kind of structure. Code is poetry. Alright, so I have my little basic body. So following, let's see what Bootstrap does. Now I'm curious where the padding goes. The padding goes on the body. Therefore, the card is paddingless. Interesting. Okay. Alrighty. So in the beginning, your entry point, your card, accepts the size, right? Before I just had one component, one size, one style, applying it to the card. But now I need to apply that size onto various parts. The body is one, but if I'm separating it out to the header and also the footer, the size needs to be translated into those little bits as well. One thing that you can do, I guess, is right now, I mean, because the body isn't necessarily part of the card component, if you were to do something like this, you'd basically have to write this. Card, body, stuff. Size is medium, and if you had a header, you would do the same thing. Medium, whatever. And if you had a footer, you'd have to do the same thing. This feels very laborious. I don't like this. I would prefer this. And then the card component should figure it out on its own. That's a little bit of magic that we need to add to this. But how do we add that magic? Basically, these components need to be connected to this somehow and know how to understand how it is to get the props. Thankfully, within React, we have context, which is now available to us via hooks, which is cool. And I believe I can import use context from WordPress elements. Sure. Const export const card context is React. No, sorry. Use context, and its default is nothing. And export const use card context. And I don't know if this is going to work, by the way. I'm just blindly coding this and hoping that it's going to work. Just because I haven't done this before inside of WordPress components. So we'll see. I think it's here, CreateContext. Oh man, okay, I'm gonna look in the library now. WordPress elements. You're gonna see me fumble around. What is it that you actually export? Everything from React. Wonderful. So that means CreateContext is there. So I'm gonna use the context of card context and we should be fine. Cool. That means that the initial card here is basically the provider that sends all this information through to the connected little bits that come with the card. This is the personally, this is the pattern that I have been using. CardProvider accepts props, and the props are how do I do this? Oh yeah. I'm plucking out the provider, the actual provider that comes from the card context. That's because that's how context works. And I am defining the values to be passed into the provider. Value is props. Maybe. I can pluck some stuff out. Const is, let's see, variant and size. Variant, size. Alphabetical. Variant and size. I'm plucking this out right now as props. I technically can pass the whole thing in, but probably better not to. Size, variant. Now I'm going to render the provider with the value of value and props. Actually, does it come with props? One moment, thinking. No. I also need children's. Again, bear with me, live coding this kind of stuff. I don't have anything planned. I don't have the luxury of copying and pasting from anything else. I'm just writing all this stuff from my head. Which is dangerous, I suppose, but that's how I'm rolling. So I have this, and now I can pluck import CardProvider from ... CardContext. And now I can pass in context up here into here. And here I'm going to pass in context props is the size and variant. Spread that. Cool. What has changed? Literally nothing. But now, hopefully, I'm able to do something. Import use card context from /context. This is a test. Console log use card context. What I'm expecting now, hopefully this works, is I'm expecting a console log of the size and the variant. Wow, lots of things are exploding. Body's not defined. Oh, this is all just from the live reloading things. I saw something come through. Give me a second. Refresh, please. Fine. The context. Maybe I need to make a change. There we go. Yay, I have context. I can now use the context. So here I can do size. Oh no, it doesn't come from there. Const size comes from the card context. Is use card context. And I would do size and is size. Cool. So what I'm expecting now is this can go away just because I have proven that it worked. I'm going to inspect element, and I'm expecting to see that the card body is size MD, which it does. The size is being passed through now, which is cool. And I'm able to access it at any point with the header, the body, or the footer without having to manually write that when I'm, as a user, using this component, which is cool. We have access to this stuff. But now I actually need to write the sizes for the card body. It's coming into here. So is size. What I need now is const body UI is styled as a div, and I need to put the sizes here. And this padding by default is nothing. I need to export this. Import body UI from /. Where did I put it? Oh yeah, card styled. And now I'm going to inject it here. Literally nothing changes visually, but from an architecture standpoint, we have something happening. The padding is now coming from here. And if I change this, the padding should shrink, maybe. Yes, yes it does. It's just a little bit slow, but it's working. So all this is working. It's all hooked up. Cool, that's working. And with this, let me now construct the header, which should, at this point in time, be very similar. Doesn't really do much. Header, header, header UI, which doesn't really do much. Header UI does not exist, so it's going to explode and it's going to yell at me. One moment, calm down, Storybook. I got you. All right. So now header is available. I can do something inside of my stories, inside of my knobs, to do something like this. Const header is text header, and by default it's nothing. So if somehow a header is defined, I can render a header up here. How cool is that? Card. You'll see what I mean. You'll see. Header. Trust me. You'll just believe. Just believe. Header up here. All right, but it's gonna break because I have not associated header with the card. So I gotta do that. Body header. Header. All right, calm down. I'm using it, ESLint, calm down. Alrighty. So now, if I start typing something, header, yeah, I have a header that just randomly appears, and if I get rid of it, it's gone. And if I change the size from extra large to small, both the header and the body will reflect those changes accordingly. Great. And all of this stuff, all this data is being passed through from React. These components know how to talk to each other. That's the cool thing. When you're able to build components like this, little bits like this and compose, it's cool. But when they can talk to each other, that's where it's really fun. Sorry, just checking the chat now. Value still hurts my head, JS. Value, where is that? Value equals value, that part probably from the context. Ben, when would you favor threading components through children instead of, so threading being passing things through over context. So, all right. When you have a component like, I'm gonna call this the Ben component because he asked this question. So when you have a component like this, and you have just a thing, and then you're rendering another thing. Ben is rendering a div that does not do anything. And if you have another component, const cool, because Ben is cool. Props. So if I'm here and I'm rendering cool like that, and Ben accepts there's a prop called happy. So if it's just a simple matter of like, hey, cool, I need to give you happy, then you can kind of do that and it's fine. But if I'm just gonna start doing A, B, C now. If things start to nest a lot, so if A happens to be a div that renders B, I can't sketch it out right now. But what I'm trying to say is, this might be easier. All right, so you have Ben, you have cool, you have A, you have B, you have C. Way easier to understand. I apologize for that stupid example earlier. I'm not saying Ben, you're stupid. I'm saying my particular example is kind of dumb. So if you had a relationship like this, and you needed the happy prop, happy, to be passed down from Ben to cool to A to B to C. I've seen code bases where I would describe this as waterfalling. You waterfall your props all the way down like this. It gets very, very tedious and cumbersome. And they're just so tightly coupled that when you need to like move things or refactor things or just try to follow the trail of things, it is very difficult. So if you had some context, lives up here, context, that happens to have happy, that means that C is able to access happy very easily. without B having to pass it through, A having to pass it through, and cool having to pass it through. So context is very, very helpful in that perspective. And in our case, with the body, the header, and soon to be the footer, they aren't directly being rendered by the card. They are separate pieces. It's not like the component themselves, it's not like this, card, body. They, as far as composability is concerned, they are separate pieces like this. So somehow, this separate piece of card body needs to be able to access the properties of card independently, in a way, but that becomes immediately available once it's nested within. So you need to do that. The only way to really do that in a sane kind of perspective is to leverage context to take care of that connection. And if you're familiar with things like Redux, that's exactly what it is. They don't, underneath the hood, they use context plus some other hyper performance stuff. But the idea is you have your things living somewhere up here, and any kind of things you have lower level arbitrarily in your tree, you're able to connect this little bit with this higher bit using their connect component. And what we're doing right here with the body and soon to be the header and soon to be the footer is a very, very simple version of that, but same concept. Hopefully that was helpful. Cool, let's build the footer now. Footer. Same idea. Footer. Footer. Footer UI. So something is screaming at me, and I'm sure you're seeing it as well. Let's see. Footer. All right. Calm down, Innocent. I'm getting there. Footer. All right, adding my story. I need to have the same idea, footer, and if footer exists, render a footer. Footer. Oops. Footer. All right, we're in business. Nope, no need. Whoops, I closed Sublime. It's fine, I can reopen it. Cool, so if I header, yay. Footer, yay. Nope, that does not work because something is angry at me. I don't know why. Oh, it's because I didn't save the file. That would help if I saved the file. Save the file. Yay, footer works, header works. Body is there. What I can do is I can actually, I'm going to rename children because that's not very clear. Body. There we go. Body, and I'm going to do the same thing. If there's no body, then don't render anything. Body. Cool. Yep, now it's got nothing. I got a body, I got a header, I got a footer. Cool. Refresh, by default, it should have code is poetry in there. Good. And I'm just double checking the size variance works for both header and footer. Yes, I do. Great, cool. What's the other thing I need to build now? Well, headers and footers, when you're using them in this kind of way, they have some sort of border that touches upon these things. I want to see how Bootstrap does it. Where does the border come in? The border comes from the header. It adds a border on the bottom. That makes sense. Okay, let's do that. But before we get into that, I am noticing this. This is repetitive, which is fine, but also not fine at the same time. So what I can do is similar to what Sean had mentioned earlier, is to create a Mixin, but for CSS and JS, which is just writing a function, sizes. What does it do? It returns this. It returns a string. Come on. Why are you angry at me? All right. It returns a string, and now I can use this thing like this. Sizes. There's my Mixin. It's a function that returns a string that just generates the sizes for all these guys. And now I just need to update one spot, and now all of them get sizes, and everyone is happy. That's fun. Just gonna check this. Great, that works. So now we need to add borders to the header. The header is border bottom. Footer is border top. Now I should be able to see header and footer borders. Yay! From a design standpoint, I think typically headers and footers have different paddings. That makes it a little bit tricky. And what I mean is bodies, typically they have a uniform padding throughout, like 2020 throughout. But headers and footers, they're I can inspect this for you. They're vertical paddings, top and bottom. They're a little bit smaller compared to the sides. So I somehow need to account for this. I can do this for now. I don't need to be clever, I just need to do something. Body sizes and then header, footer sizes. Of course, all this can be refactored. So what do I want for the sides? I mean, this is where design would be lovely. Would it be best practices to Mixins on a separate functions file? It depends. So it's an interesting question when you're writing JavaScript. This is like a kind of JavaScript-y question as well. Like, because typically you would have your main stuff inside of your JavaScript, and then sometimes you would write these little helper functions that just help your main stuff do something. And to start off with, usually you might have 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3 or something, just a handful of little things. For me, I would bring them out when other things need them. Otherwise, it's just simpler to kind of keep them all in one file. However, once this starts happening, when you have 20, okay, now this is like too much. Now we're gonna figure something out. So now that's when your helpers go into like a dedicated, not arrow utils, like a utils file or something that's kind of close to your main stuff, and you would pluck them out that way. Similar to what you're describing, you would have your mixins or something in a different file, and you would pluck it in. But for now, there's not too much happening, and I feel comfortable kind of leaving it in here, just because the file is still very small, and I think it's fine. So from this, I'm just guessing numbers. 12, sure. This 8. This 4, sure. Header footer sizes are a little bit different than body sizes, and it'll be fine. Why are you complaining? No extra semicolon or I don't know. ESLint is having a field day. So now if I render a header, you can see that the vertical padding is now different. Footer, same thing. And if I adjust the sizing, it should, update to match. It's like it takes a couple of times to re-render for some reason. Like the initial render doesn't work. But anyway, the one thing I really like to do when I'm trying to test for alignment is, I know that there are fancy tools and everything out there, but my favorite thing to do is to use Finder as my ruler. Does that look all right? That looks all right. They look aligned to me. It's the fastest thing I can use to align things, using Finder as my ruler. Alrighty, so we have sizes, which is cool. And then here's an interesting question. Tammy, if you're there, if I were to make the card borderless, should the header and the footer also be borderless? I don't know. I'm going to wait for you to reply. I'm going to do something else, and then hopefully you'll reply. If folks in the chat, please give your opinion, because I'm not sure. Yeah. I also shift command 4. I do this sometimes as well as my ruler, but but the thing is, sometimes I take accidental screenshots and I don't like that. I just like using Finder. It's my little gigantic ruler. This is so much fun, you folks. Just being able to chat on, hi, just being able to do live chat and live coding at the same time. So collaborative, so open source. So here's the thing I need to take care of. How do I round the things for header and footer? So I'm going to exaggerate something a little bit. I'm going to make the border radius 20 for now, just so I can see this very exaggerated header. Right now, you don't really see too much happening, but if I were to give the header a specific background color, cool. So I think Tammy says to remove the borders from everything if I do borderless. All right, I can do that. Background, this. And this is why it's so cool to collaborate with designers when you're doing this kind of stuff, because they can think about all the more, I guess, aesthetic use cases while you're trying to figure out context APIs and things. So here's a problem where the header, I need to round it off. And this is an interesting problem. Typically, I think I've seen people solve this in the past by simply adding overflow hidden to the header. This does work 100%. But what the downside of that is, there is a common use case where you might have tooltips, popovers, or things that might need to float outside your header for reasons. And if you did overflow hidden, that cuts that off. That prevents that from happening. So a more manual but more open way of handling that kind of use case of like rounding things off is just to manually do this. If we use a header, we're assuming that you always add it to the top just because that's how headers work. So we do border, top, left radius, and in our case, it'd be 20. Right. This is bottom now. So now this should look fine. Great. Footer, it's not colored in, but I'm assuming it'll look fine. So now we can handle those cases where it's rounded, but you allow for some overflow to happen. So Tammy suggested to not have borders if I do variant borderless, so I'm going to do that. So if this is borderless, then border none. If this is borderless, then border none. So now we're starting to see some repetition here. So I can add a Mixin for borderless. I'm just going to call it handle borderless. Why not? Why not? Why not? Copy. Return. Bloop. 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 And now here I can do this. There. Body, I don't need it. I need it here though. And I also need it here. Header here. Get rid of this. Cool. Get rid of this. Cool. Hey, where'd this go? Header footer sizes. Yep. Yep. Save. Yep. Get rid of this. I don't need this now. Well, the card had borders to begin with. Yeah. So this is correct. All right, cool. So now if I did header, if I did footer, the header has a background for now. But now as soon as I do borderless variant, the borders go away. No, they didn't. You lie. Oh, it's because I didn't handle that use case. Silly. How silly of me. So is variant. There we go. And the variant comes from the context now. Footer, same thing. Variant. Variant. Great. Let me try again. What was I trying to do? Oh yeah, take off the border. Cool. What does it look like raised? Neat. But the borders come back in. Why? Why? This is interesting. The borders only go away when... Oh, I know why. I know why. There is a style I've added inside of raised that removes the borders. So I also need to add that into my logic here. Whoop! That fixes it. That takes care of it. And it's fine. Everything is fine. Nothing's on fire yet. Yay! It's great. Um, cool. Let me zoom in a little bit, hopefully, so you can see this better. I apologize. I forgot to zoom in here. Leave. Okay, let me just take a look at some designs now. Oh yeah. How do I now I'm trying to think, how can I add background colors to the header and the footer in a kind of like program, in a way that enables makes it easy for folks to do it in a custom way. What I mean by that, because I wasn't Englishing very well, is if I did if I did header like that, and I did body like this, and I did footer like this, how do I build a UI where the header has a gray background but the footer doesn't? Just because that's my preference. It doesn't, I feel like it doesn't make sense to add it here. Header background, something like that. It doesn't make sense to add it there just because it feels too, it's not associated with the header in that way. I feel like you need something here. So like as background maybe, and if this one needs a background, this one has a, this is one of the hardest parts, just figuring out names for this stuff, is shaded. UI, yes, how to talk to my devices when they do unexpected things. I don't know. I can always change the name for this, of course. It's not muted. It's something. It's I don't know. Is hinted. Has background. Sure, fine. I give up. I give up. Has background. Yeah, sure. Why not? I give has background. And I'm looking at the chat. Header by. Yeah, and if there's any better name, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm just gonna go with has background for now. I don't like the word has. Is better. Is good for booleans. Is with background. That also sounds terrible, but I'm going with that for now. Oh, I'm dying inside a little bit. And is with background. Has back. Is shady. That's great. I'm doing that. Is shady because it's fun. I'm sure that someone's going to say something about that, but it is fun, and I'm going to go with that. Thanks, Ben. It's shady. So footer also gets an is shady. Function. This is what you're talking about, Tammy. This is when things are getting a little bit, we're getting a lot of little mix-ins here. Is handle shade. Kind of want to rename this to throw shade for fun, but that doesn't, that from a JavaScript standpoint, that implies something else. Implies that you're throwing an error. So this one is shady. Background is what was it? Get color, some color, I don't know, some color. Sure, let's go with that color for now. We can always change it. I'm going with that. Thanks, Mark. No, I can't. That might be better. Render shade. No, I don't like it. This half my time is just like figuring out the good names for things. I already have handle, so handle shady is fine. Cool. So now that means that I'm just going to adjust my stories a little bit, where const is header is header shady is boolean that is header shady, and then by default it is false. Is footer shady? Is footer shady? And this one is shady. Such a cute name, I swear. Is footer shady? All right. What that means is Boolean. Do I have Boolean? Great. So I am now able to. I'm going to render something for the header just so that it's never just always blank. Header, footer, fine. Now I can see it all the time. Great. Oh, header should not always be that. I need to get rid of that style. I've added that in there, and that's irresponsible of me. Okay. So now I can do, is header shady? Yes, it is. Is footer shady? Yes, it is. I can remove them both, and it's fine, and I can do this on the fly. And I can see what this looks like if I have them both, and if I do a borderless, what does that look like? Cool. What does it look like when it's raised? Cool. What does it look like when you have this combination and it happens to be small? Cool. So all this stuff is working. Oh, the border radius is also uncomfortably large, so I'm gonna change that now. Back to 3 pixels. Great. Things make sense in the world again. So now we have this. This basically takes care of the kind of bootstrappy use case, I think, except card image top. Image top. That's how they named it. Fine. How do they do it? I'm basically stealing implementation details. Card media. Interesting. So they like have some sort of wrapper. I'm gonna increase my text so you can see. So how they've done it is, in order to render this image, they have some sort of wrapper that like, you don't actually inject like an image tag or something. They do something fancy to render an image tag, and they encapsulate it in some sort of component API for you. Media, card media, the same kind of thing. I don't want to do that just because it feels too opinionated. There's a bit of magic in here that makes me uncomfortable. I don't like that. How does it look like when it's at the top? How do you know how to round your borders? I'm guessing it's if the the media happens to be the first thing, then therefore round it. How do you know to round your borders? Unless you're using overflow hidden is irresponsible. How on earth are you rounding your borders? Unless it's just being applied onto this thing, which I doubt. Fine, I've time boxed it, I give up, I'll just figure out my own way. How does Bootstrap do it? They use CSS to do it for sure, but then how is it then you do card image top? All right. I think media would be good, just because I like that it opens the opportunity to embed a YouTube video if you want to. I'm just designing for anything at this point. Card image, yes, Mark is on board. Let's do it. So I want to do some fun things. I want to create a story where I don't need a playground anymore. Let's do this. Const media. I'm gonna render a media thing. So render a card. So right now, I mean, the styles for this is relatively Spartan. There are no styles for text or anything like that. I don't know if I'll get into that level of detail just because I think this is something that we need to pair with design on to figure out what it is we want the cards to look like. But we have the foundation to be able to make that collaboration work. Hopefully you agree. Because the components are already there. We just need to tinker around with the styles and everything will be fine. So now we have the card. I want to add card media. And the card media is able to accept an image of some kind, and it's able to render something. I need an image. Where can I get an image for free? Unsplash is a great place to get free images, I believe. I think. What's a cool image? Flowers are cool. What's this thing? What's she smelling? Marshmallow ice cream. That's cool. Copy, copy image. Here we go. Hopefully I can do this. Alrighty. So if I add this inside of here, right now it's probably complaining because I don't have an alt tag. Smelling marshmallow ice cream cone. Alright, no more complaints. Media. Cool, we have a gigantic image that just ruins everything. How do I, come on, move this down, move this down. All right. So I need to work with that a little bit. Let's see, playground. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some inline styles just to force the card to be a certain width, so it's not too nutso. Alrighty. So now this image takes up the entire card. Which I guess is kind of what we want, but actually I kind of don't like this image. I apologize. I need something that's like more long. No, I don't want to download it. Accident. Oh my god. Yes, this works well. No, it's not. I need something that's a little bit more horizontally somethings. Sure, this works. Fine. Copy image. Nope. I'm clicking all the wrong things. I apologize. Copy image. Putting it in here, the alt tag will still be smelling marshmallow ice cream cone because that's what we're doing now. Right, that's the image. But somehow the image is way too big. That's because we need to do some things. I know what we need to do. First, we got to create our media component. Media UI. We do media here. Media, and right now it literally doesn't do anything as of this moment. Like to start small. Doesn't do anything with context either. Styled. I need to shrink this. Let's see. From an architecting, from a just like where to put it standpoint, I think it makes sense to put it here. Doesn't really matter. Or if it's just how I'm imagining the UI being constructed, media makes sense there. Header, media, body, footer. That order makes sense to me. It's not alphabetical, it's not whatever, it just makes sense. Okay, so if an image happens to render inside, then max width the image, 100%, height, auto. Cool. Media. Yeah, capital. This one is an M. This goes here. And then I've been live streaming for a while now. Thank you so much for staying with me here. I'm having fun. I hope you are as well. Thank you so much for spending your Friday with me. Jeez. Cool. So I have my media that's being rendered. Right now it's not doing anything because I haven't added it to my stories. So now I have a card media component. Yay! It knows how to resize itself. Object fit will work, and I'm a huge fan of object fit, by the way. The tricky thing with object fit is you would object fit. An object fit is kind of like a more modern CSS equivalent of using background size cover. And I'm just gonna Google this. Background size cover, so I have something to talk about. Background size cover, usually it's the CSS tricks one, yeah. And the background size cover is basically the image knowing how to snap itself to the bounding box. So like if you're to set your wallpaper on Mac OS, you can do fill or something. One of those that just magically knows how to position itself. Object fit is a way for you to target images to do that without having to set it as a background, which is very handy. The trickiness to that is I think your image surrounding thing has to define a height and width first. Otherwise, the image doesn't know how to resize itself to the container. I may be wrong. Let's give it a shot. Alrighty. What if I did object fit cover? Yeah, like that doesn't work. But if I did the surrounding thing, I think if I gave it a width of 300, I may be wrong. I may be very wrong. I'm very wrong, and I apologize. Oh my God, object fit. I swear. Is it object fit? There's an object something. Object fit, cover, contain. This is what you do when you do CSS. You just cycle through all the options until something works. Yeah, I think. Interesting. Oh, no. You still need to enable all these things. It's just object fit. Like if I'm so sorry, if the dimensions are slightly different from your resized image, the object fit will magically grow or shrink or do whatever it is to fill in that area. That's what object fit does. And I think that I will leave it up to the implementer, I think, consuming this component to figure that out. Just because I don't want to do something, I don't want to add too much magic to the image stuff, because I don't want to break things. So I think leaving it out for now is fine. But I mean, if folks want to add it and I think it's a good idea, cool. The code is there for you to do it. Oh, let's add a YouTube video in there. Why not? What a cool YouTube video. WordPress not. I mean, what's trending right now? No, that's dangerous. Corgis, yeah. Let's do corgi. Some guy yelling at a corgi. Corgi compilation video. Yeah, cool. There is an embed something. Come on. How do I share the video? There it is. Embed code. All right. There, media. Okay, so I have a example of a here and here, and instead of putting an image, I'm going to put a YouTube video of corgis. Thanks, Tammy. I think this is appropriate. No, it's not. Why are you yelling at me? Titles. Title. I'm going to call her corgi. Great. And it's going to look broken in my UI because the video breaks the container. Oh man, so this is tricky now because there is a way for you to use CSS to make responsive videos that come from iframes. I'm going to add it in just because I think it's cool, but obviously this can break things depending on your implementation and so on. I'm just going to add it in though. So I believe the code is doing something like this. It also assumes dimensions, which I kind of don't like. You can kind of do the same thing for iframes doing something like this, but yeah, then you'll kind of get a cutoff like that. The CSS fix for this is you would do something like this. I like this one. You would make the height 0, and then you would make the padding bottom 56.25%. Something like that. Oh, no. You need to do some other thing. Man, CSS iframe responsive. Using CSS, yeah, you need a container for that. Yeah, I don't want to add, yeah, it's too bad. So I think I'll just do this for now, which is not the greatest, but at least it's something. There's some sort of support for iframes. So if you're curious about how that math works, the 56.25, how you get that is you would divide 9 by 16, which is 16 by 9, that ratio, that's the HD ratios that you have. And that this is 56.25%. You would add that, and then math happens, and you're able to get that 16 by 9 ratio for your iframe. So if you had a more standard depth thing, which is 3 by 4, 4 by 3, you would use 75. And if you had a square, for you folks on the grams that use squares, it's 1, because it's 1 by 1, 100 by 100 square ratio. That's how you do it. So let us, now that we have the media thing, we're going to round off the borders. But not always. This is interesting. Iframe. We go round it off, but not always. So right now we have some roundedness happening, so that allows for your shadow when you're doing the raised, or your border to show correctly. Might be a little hard to see. I'm gonna zoom in a bit. Also see a little bit of, you see this little space down here? How do I zoom in? Control 8, 8, no, yes, yeah! Accessibility tools, awesome. I use this all the time, by the way. Yeah, I should be using this more often. This is what I'm talking about. So you have a little spacing on the bottom. Typically that comes because you need to make these things display block. When in doubt, make something display block and everything just fixes itself. Yay. So I need for these things to be rounded, but only in certain scenarios. So what I mean is Sublime, media, rounded, no, is first child rounded equals yes. Is middle rounded equal no. Rounded top. Top is last child rounded bottom equals yes. And if it happens to be only child, that's sad. This is how we describe things. Then you need both. In a way, cool. All right, so that's the logic we need to build inside here. Blah, blah, blah. First child, then this needs to happen. Last child, then this needs to happen. Otherwise, and if it's the first and the last, it's an only child if it's the first and the last, so therefore both of them will apply and everything will be fine. That's my guess. I've done this before, I can't remember. Cool, so now everything is rounded, things are fine, we can see the borders, it's cool, we will zoom in. Yeah, it's tight, everything is good. Cool. So what happens if I, let me get rid of the corgi one. No, I'm not gonna get rid of it. I'm just gonna give some spacing so I can have something to work with. So what happens if I add a card body now? Hello, I'm adding a paragraph tag because I'm a sensible person. Hello. We have a problem. The problem is I've added it to the wrong thing. I've added the first and last child to the actual image itself. I can't do that. I need to add it to the media. Right. And inside the media, now target the image or the iframe. Oof. Put that in there. Yeah. Image, iframe. Rip. Yep. Alrighty, so now this one is straight, but it's curvy at the top, and that's fine. I'm going to set up various scenarios just to test it out. I'm going to make the size a little bit tinier just because the amount of spacing here is uncomfortable. Oh, it's uncomfortable because I put in a P, and by default Ps have lots of padding above and below. So I'm just going to add in a div right now, forgive me. Yeah, so we have something that looks like this. I feel like I'm building like a social media UI now. So what happens if the card happens to be the last one? Maybe that's the UI that you want. Oh, no. Maybe you have some header that displays something. And what if the card is sandwiched between a header and a footer? This is the cool thing about Storybook. You have this playground to just like do your what if scenarios and just kind of like build things out and just see very fast. All right, so this looks good, this looks good. This sandwiching looks good, and now with the only child scenario works because we've tested it out earlier. And I'm just going to add BRs for all of these things. BR. Cool. There. Good. Cool. Yeah. So now we have the scenarios where we can build something like this. Cool. This one is a little bit different. This one is not impossible. Not impossible. We could build this in, but I feel like this is not a common case for now. So I'm gonna leave this. I'm gonna leave that out. One other common case I know is you have different sections that the different body sections that can kind of touch each other, like this. How did they do it? They added a list group? What? Oh, I see. So they've interspliced a body with a list group that provides the slices, the margins rather, and then you have the body card at the very bottom. I don't really like this. We can do something. So here's something that we can do. Component API design time. So we have a card. We have another card. Now you have your card body. You put stuff in it, as you do. So you can do something where if a card body happens to be next to a card body, dividers just automatically happen. Totally, that's a very legitimate use case. And if you happen to do is borderless, then those borders go away. I don't really, to me, that doesn't feel flexible enough. Just because I feel like there might be a scenario where you have something that is sorry, it's not borderless, it's a variant borderless, excuse me. You have something that's borderless, but you still want those dividers there. Another thing you can do is this. You have a divider component, and you just stick it wherever it is you want. And that just divides your cards wherever it is you feel like is necessary. I kind of like this a little bit better because now you can have chunks of bodies next to each other if you want to, and then you just put your divider where you feel like makes sense. And you're able to compose things because you have all the little bits. So let's do that. I'm in favor of that idea. Divider. And divider does not do anything other than just render itself. Divider. Okay. Divider. It's very, very simple, the divider. It literally header, media, body, footer, export const. is literally a one height pixel thing that just, just has a background color. Let's see. What am I doing? Oh yeah, height is 1 pixel. Background color is the same as your borders, which happens to be here. Background color is that. That's all the divider does. This is very simple. Divider. And now for my stories, I will add a little story to test it out. Divider. So it is a body. I'm going to grab some lorem ipsum, if you don't mind. And one place that I enjoy going for lorem ipsum is a site called JeffSum, which is actually made by a friend of mine. He was a co-worker of mine at Help Scout, and he made JeffSum and lorem ipsum, but for Jeff Goldblum things. It's pretty funny. It's pretty fun. Somehow I remember it blew up, it got viral at one point, and he was very surprised. So there's that. There is this. Paragraph tags. No. I'm not going to use paragraph tags just because, whoops, it gives it extra margin, and I don't want to do that. Here, and I'm going to stick a card divider. And now if I take a look, yay, I see the card divider. And I guess I can add some knobs to that. Yeah. Yep. Here, and I will put it like this. Knob should appear. There we go. So if I were to change this to raised, that's what it looks like. If I were to change this to borderless, that's what that looks like. I don't know if that is necessarily the best, but maybe you want to use this borderless card in some other scenario where you still want a divider in between. Well, you can do that now. And you have your various sizes. Cool. So now we have a divider example. We have media examples. And I'm going to clean up these examples. Right now I'm just writing a little hints of just randomness here, just to get something working. But you can see, I like the exploratory kind of aspect to it, where I'm just like, I just need to see how this thing looks in like 5 different ways. I can do it very simply in Storybook. And I like how hyper focused this thing is on just UI stuff, which comes in handy if you're this really comes in handy when you're trying to develop things like animations, because like animations are one of those things where you have to keep clicking and seeing how it looks like 10 times in a row to see if it feels right. And having an environment like this where you can just do this, or just like trigger it on and off and things like that, or opening and closing modals, it's wonderful. Anyway, I'm going to talk about Storybook for ages if I could. Cool. So now we have a card component. We have a media component that goes to set up the card. We have the header, body, footer, and also a divider. And with that, I feel like you can construct and compose most of the card UIs that you would need. As a test for this, I'm going to try to reconstruct this. Why not? Let's see. What is this one called? Block directory. Block directory card. Block directory card. Here's the test. Can I build an actual UI that someone has designed, thanks Mel, with the components that I've created? I think so. Looks relatively simple. I have a card, and I have a card body at the very top. And I have a card footer at the very bottom. And the footer is shady. Throwing shade. And it looks a little bit tighter. So it looks like the size happens to be small. That's what it looks like, at least. Let me see. Yeah. So the edges is a little bit smaller. So I'm gonna get it small. Actually, I just noticed something. I don't know if this is a footer or not, but in this specific scenario, get rid of this magnifying glass. Zoom in. I think the spacing between this and this, oh no, are the same. So this is basically a card body that you just happen to be shady. So, okay. Well, if that's the kind of design that we want to do, then the card body should be able to be shady as well. Let's add that to the card body. Not too hard at this point, I don't think. Because we have a handle shady thing that lives here. Cool. So now I have what's my story called? Block thingy stuff. I will add some stuff to the stuff. Alrighty. That did not work. Why did that not work? Oh, right, because I didn't excuse me. I didn't add that is shady and is shady. Ah, crap. I have to replace my backticks with strings. Probably have to do that in other places because I forgot. I will do that here. I will also do that here. Cool. Oh, no. Forgot. There's no line in between because it's not a footer anymore, and footers automatically have lines, but because we want this very specific UI where the footer and the body happen to have the same padding, we can do this because we now have a divider. We can add a divider into here like this. Yeah, we did it. I can of course construct the rest of this UI here, but this will require more CSS and various other elements and things like that. But I'm able to construct the foundation that can create something like this, which is a good test, I think. And with this, I think we have our card component. I have to, of course, write tests for all this stuff. The other thing I need to do is, a very important thing I need to do is, well, because I'm writing CSS and JS, maybe you want to override the CSS in a traditional, more standard manner. I have to make sure that works. And a very important thing that I've intentionally done when I'm using the CSS and JS stuff. This is important because some people don't do this. Styled components. Right. So in this styled components example, they're writing functions within their styled components to render styles based on the properties you give it. Very JavaScripty, very Reacty, which is fine. But this, when it renders the HTML, it doesn't give you traditional class names that you can understand when you're looking at the markup like this, and that you can potentially override if you want to. So for me, I've added class names, which I totally didn't need to because the CSS is now being rendered by something else. But by adding these traditional class names, like component card body and whatever it is in there, and also these various modifier classes, it makes it accessible to people who are more used to these workflows to be able to work with that and to write CSS to override it. Traditional CSS, non-CSS and JavaScript stuff. It's best of both worlds from my experience. So let's try that. So here we have a div that renders. I'm just going to inject the style tag like that. I think it works in React. And for this particular scenario, I am going to change the color of is shady. If I can copy this. Oh, come on. Fine, I'll just write it manually. Fine, whatever, fine. Component card body.is shady background red. Yeah, I can't do that because of the style tag. Can you write a style tag inside React? I think you can. You probably have to do one of this nonsense stuff like dangerously inject HTML. Give me a second. I'm stuck in a situation where it's like, come on, man, it should be a lot easier than this. Dangerously inject. Fine, fine. Give me one moment. Right. Const CSS equals this. I just want to add some CSS, man. Dangerously. Is it double underscore? No underscores. Dangerously set inner HTML is that with a double underscore HTML, and then you add your HTML in there, and then React will render it just fine. Did that work? I have no idea. If this doesn't work, I'll try to figure out how to inject CSS another way. React render style tag. Yes, Ben, super important. That's the thing. That's the thing that's like, in a way, exclusionary from like some of the component libraries or the design systems out there. It's just like, if you don't have the traditional way of overriding CSS, you basically cut off everybody who doesn't know React, and that's not cool. You want to keep that open. So this is not working, and I don't know why. Let's see if Storybook has handled this situation. Custom CSS, I don't know. Body, background is red. I'm just trying things at this point. I just want to confirm if I add CSS, if it'll override things. I think it'll be fine. So I'm now injecting CSS using Webpack to do things. Great, that works. Cool. Now let me target that guy. Component card body is shady. Background red. Right now it doesn't take, I think it's just for specificity reasons. Let me just double check. No, it's not taking at all. Maybe I named it wrong. Components. Component card body is shady. Yay! So I can still write traditional CSS to change my components if I need to. So that's cool. Glad to know that's working. Sorry I went on this little tangent of like trying to dangerously render styles inside of a style tag. Because I don't know, I thought it would be easy because React is supposed to make this stuff easy, but apparently some things are hard. That's fine. Cool. I think we have a pretty good card component. Again, I didn't do any of the text stuff just because I don't know what kind of titles, subtitles, and all that kind of stuff needs to be, but the foundational card thing is there. You're able to compose all these various bits of UIs very easily. And the cool thing about this is, like, I think at this point you can really kind of add anything you want. Like you can add an accordion kind of thing in here if you want to. You have a header, you have an accordion or something like that. That'd be cool. So yeah, let me just check the comments in here. Tangents or what? Yeah, thanks, Tammy. Man, thank you so much for sticking around for so long. And so the next step for me, I guess, would be to write tests for this kind of stuff to make sure it's fine, and also to test within Gutenberg. I would do it on this live stream, but then I had to figure out how to write a Gutenberg block right now that can render the. You know what? I'm just gonna try it. I'm just gonna try it. Why not? Why not? npm run playground. I've only done this a handful of times, and I always forget how to do it, and I always feel like a fool every single time. Playground dev, playground. One moment, please. Playground. Concurrently build packages and do things. Okay. I think I need to build a package or something. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I need to export my cards. Card from card. So that's available globally. Great. I'm gonna try this. I don't know what this is gonna do. I was told I was supposed to build. I think. You want to feel not a fool? Yeah, Tammy. I mean, I've written JavaScript for years, and I still like am foolish in some of the things I do. Oh man, you want to see me act like a fool? Watch me try to write TypeScript. I know how to do it, but it's just so, it's just TypeScript. npm run. Oh, my computer fans are going crazy. npm run playground dev. Alrighty, we have Gutenberg. I don't know if you can hear my fans are going crazy. My computer. Let me just check something. Cool, I'm using 27 gigabytes worth of RAM. That's fun. And how much CPUs? Lots of CPUs. Oh, I know why. Hang on, I gotta close VS Code. Oh my God. Here's the thing. VS Code is really good as a code editor. However, when you try to do fancy things like npm crazy node module stuff and lots of things are changing, it's like VS Code is trying to optimize that for you, which is great. It's lovely. But because so many things are changing, it gets so overworked that it just takes up your entire computer's CPU. And now my fans are going crazy, and I apologize if the stream shuts down because my computer is confused. But it's fine. I think we're back. Great. So we have a Gutenberg block. Nothing has exploded, which is good. I want to add a card in here. I'm just going to inject a card just to see if that even works. Do I have them available globally? Components. I do. Do I have a card? No, I don't. What? WP. You should have WP. Maybe this one didn't expose it. No, I guess I don't have it. That's fine. Playground index. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, I need the card. Not a clipboard, I need a card. Card from here. And I am rendering, what am I rendering? I'm rendering Gutenberg right there. He's happy, he's living, it's cool. What I have, I'm just gonna render a div that says hello, just so I know where I'm at. Hello. Great, so that's where it is. What if I render a card that says hello? Yay, we have a card, yay. I'm just gonna render the card, the corgi story. Why not? Just for you, Tammy. Look at that. The card component is working fine within the context of Gutenberg. That's fun. Also, it renders a responsive YouTube video. That's neat. And yeah, looks like things are working. That's cool. Now I'm gonna shut this down because my computer is literally yelling at me in terms of the fans. Microphone is burping. Oh, I apologize. Is it better now? Hopefully it's better now. Maybe my computer, I don't know. The fans are very angry. I wish you can hear this. But anyway, so it looks like it's working in Gutenberg, fine. That means it's exported properly, there's no compiling issues, it's building fine, it's rendering fine within Storybook, we're able to compose things, we have the little bits, we can do all these kind of things, it's cool. So everything I think we built within the card so far has been great. The only kind of tricky bits is, in addition to me cleaning up the story, of course, is the decisions of using styled components, which is still something that's being debated. But this is going to be part of my draft proposal, which I will write some stuff on to hopefully get that through. Or not get that through, but at least get folks talking about it. The other bit, and if folks think it's a bad idea, I can of course refactor this to be something else. Before I do, I'm going to do some refactoring. Just because this styles file is getting a little bit too large for my liking. It's only 141 lines, but for some reason with modern JavaScript, 50 lines is about, it's about as large as a file kind of needs to be, unless your component is crazy complex. For this one, it's starting to feel like a little bit, it can be cleaned up a little bit. So I'm going to do card.styles.this. I'm going to do Mixin.styles.js. I don't know if this is the convention we're going with, because this is literally being done in for the first time within Gutenberg. As far as CSS and JS goes. So I'm going to do mixins. I'm going to plop them all in here. Whoop. And then I'm going to export them all. One. Burping has ceased. Great. Thank you. Export. Oh, you are angry because you need color. I got you. I got you. Stop. Don't be scared. Flash. All right, so now we have our mixins that do things. Great. I'm going to move my card styles here now. And I also need my mixins now, which look like body size, header footer size, handle borderless, handle shady. All right. Body size, header footer sizes, handle borderless, handle shady from locally. Whoops. Mixins.styles.javascript and great. It's great. Okay. Everything is cool. So now I can get rid of this. I just need styles/card styles. So now I just need to replace things with the updated path. So there. Didn't copy paste properly. I apologize, this is a little bit boring now. No more, because you're just watching me refactor things. I'll be done really fast, I promise. Styles.card styles. All right. There. Header. All right. Header. All right. Okay. Almost. Styles. Card styles. All right. Card. And if I did my job right, nothing will be broken and everything will be happy, including my computer, which sounds like it's starting to calm down a bit. Oh no, everything is angry. That's why. The path was incorrect. Cool. Code is poetry. Yes, it is indeed. Everything's working. The other enhancement that I think I want to try to do is, so I've noticed something within WordPress components. What they do is they have a main index file, which is your entry file, and your component kind of lives there. I'm just going to double check something. One moment. How are you exporting stuff? You're exporting defaults. All right, cool. So what I'm thinking is, like, what if import, can I do something like this? Body, in a scenario, would you ever want to do something like this? Component slash, I don't know how these are exported, but I guess it would be that card. So typically for design system component libraries, things like that, your entry point, your index, the component code actually doesn't live there. It basically acts as the thing that imports and exports everything to the world. So the index of the JS of your card will actually look, typically if you check out component libraries, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to check out a Polaris, which is a good example, I think. Shopify Polaris. GitHub, Shopify, Polaris. And this is sort of like a, how do we choose to expose components to the world kind of architecture thing. What is a complicated component?
I don't know what has lots of little guys inside. A date picker, maybe? Oh, no, a drop down or something. Drop zone, drop down. They don't have one. Pop over, pop over. Yes. So if you take a look at their index, come on. Right. So the index exports popover, popover props, and popover close source, whatever that means, publicly. So you're able to import all those tiny individual bits from this file if you choose to. I don't think that's kind of in line with how WordPress Components is built at the moment, so I'm not going to do that. But I'm just talking about it just because that's like a thing that libraries do, and something that I'm aware of, but not going to do for now. What else do I need to do? I think we're fine. I think we're in a good spot, and yeah, the next steps for me is just to write tests and to write up the draft. And thank you so much for spending your Friday afternoon, morning, evening with me today, watching me fumble and live code up some card components with corgis and images right here in Storybook. And I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day and a fantastic weekend. Catch you later. Bye. And shout out to all the folks that are in the live chat. Thank you so much for participating. This is so much fun. I can't wait to do it again. Catch you later. Bye. Close stream, click buttons. This should work.